Welcome. Hi. The plan is simple. Fix. And specifically, the chip you see now is not new, only after reballing. So, from the beginning, step 1. Unsoldering the chip. The appropriate temperature and power of the heater is of great importance. Too high can damage the chip, and too low can damage the pads. When you soldering, step 2. Cleaning the old tin plate, which is another important step to do immediately after removing the chip when the plate is still hot, which will allow for a good flow of tin to the braiding and will prevent it from soldering to the pads, which will result in tearing of the pads during pulling, and it will not be so easy to repair. You could now ask, so what temperature is appropriate? Well, that's a good question, but it's not that easy to answer. Many factors affect the decision to set the appropriate temperature, such as the of the main board, layout, mass field, or even BGA balls. And of course, the thickness of the board as well. There are still many things I haven't mentioned, and I can handle it, and you'll find out in the next part of the video. Step 3. Cleaning the chip. As the chip is much smaller, it does not require such thermal power. The process itself is basically identical to that of a plate. The surface is to be even, without excessively swollen pads or so-called pins. So this effect is completely satisfactory, and the chip is supposed to look more or less like this, and thus I can move on to the next step. Step 4. Placing BGA balls on the chip. I will divide this point into subpoints. Subpoint A, flux. Soldering paste, not too much, not too little, so that the balls do not start to float and join together. Subpoint B, setting the sieve and filling the balls in the chip. Each ball should be in its place. There are several methods, of course. You can pour the balls on the sieve and heat them up with the sieve, or use the soldering paste instead of the balls. I pour the ball and lift the sieve and only then heat it up. There are many reasons why I choose this method in this case, and the main one will be the metal's reaction to direct heating, which leads to its bending. In the case of Apple M1 processor reballing, I will leave a link in the description. I use soldering paste and heat it directly on the sieve. I also left a phenomenal tip on how to prevent the sieve from bending during heating, so if you are interested in this topic, you must check it out. I can also put the paste, lift the sieve and heat the paste itself, causing the balls to form, but with such a large surface. I will not be 100% sure that all the balls are of the same size. And maybe somehow today this method suits me better. You can see that I moved the sieve a bit when pulling, but it won't be a big problem. And thus you can move on to the next subpoint. Subpoint C. Soldering of balls on the chip with the use of caution, without high air pressure and high temperature. I use 330 degrees here. It looks beautiful, which qualifies for the next step. Step 5. Soldering the chip on PCB. I use the same soldering profile. The created profile, as I mentioned earlier, has been adapted to the current conditions. Even giving it to someone does not mean that it will work. The machine can be calibrated differently, different conditions, so you should adjust each of your profiles. Knowledge and experience will also be heavily dependent on your settings and assessment. Therefore, I would like to invite you to train on my page in the description, which will appear soon. But now you can sign up for the newsletter and be up to date. Unfortunately, English is not currently supported. Training is completely online because this knowledge cannot be acquired in a few days. So this is a perfect chance to get to know or get trained in this difficult process. Thank you for your attention. Take care. Bye.